Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. And so guys, if you're new, subscribe, like, and comment all down below. Do all that stuff. And guys, if you see something red, click it until it turns gray. Yeah. And so guys, we are gonna read Marley, the like the real, like the fiction ones, like the kindergarten ones. The fiction ones that only have like 30 pages that have like short words on them with only pictures. But we're reading this kind of Marley. Marley, a dog like no other. So guys, let's get started with this. Okay. Chapter 1. And Puppy Makes 3. That does not make sense. Slow down, Dingo, or you're going to miss it, Jenny scowled. It should be coming up any second. Jenny was my wife. That January evening in 1991, we were driving through inky blackness across what had once been Florida swampland. We had been married for a little over a year and decided it was time for another family member, a dog. To be exact, we were on our way to look at a litter of Labrador retrievers. Our headlights shined on the mailbox. The numbers on the side reflected back at us. This was the place. I turned up a gravel drive that led into a large wooded property. There was a pond in front of the house and a small barn out back. At the door, a woman named Lori greeted us with a big, calm yellow Labrador retriever by her side. "This is Lily, the proud Mama," Lori said. Lizzie's stomach was still swollen, even though she'd given birth 5 weeks before. Jenny and I got out our knees, and Lily happily accepted our affection. She was just what we pictured a lab would be: sweet-natured, affectionate, calm, and beautiful. "Where's the father?" I asked. "Oh," the woman said, hesitating for a fraction of a second. "Sammy, boy. He's around here somewhere." She quickly added, "I imagine you're dying to see the puppies." Lori led us through the kitchen into a utility room. The puppies stumbled all over one another as they rushed to check out the strangers. Jenny gasped. "I don't think I've ever seen anything so cute in my life," she said. The litter consisted of 5 females and 4 males. Lori was asking $400 for the females and $375 for the males. One of the males seemed particularly smitten with us. He was the goofiest of the group and charged into us, somersaulting into our laps. He clawed his way up our shirts to lick our faces. He gnawed on our fingers with surprisingly sharp baby teeth and stomped clumsily circles around us on giant paws that were way too big for the rest of his body. "That one there, you can have a $350, Lori said. "Aw, honey," Jenny cooed. "The little guy's on clearance." I had to admit, he was pretty darn adorable, frisky, too. Before I realized that what he was up to, the rascal had chewed off half of my watch band. We have to do the scare test, I said. I had told Jenny the story many times of picking out St. Sean when I was a boy, sitting in this heap of puppies. She rolled her eyes at me. Seriously, I said, it works. I stood up and turned away from the puppies. Then I swung quickly back around, taking a sudden step toward them. I stopped my foot and barked out, "Hey!" I didn't seem to scare any of them, but only one plunged forward to meet the assault head on. It was the clearance dog. He plowed full steam into me, throwing a cross-body block across my ankles. Then he pounced on my shoelaces as though he was convinced they were dangerous enemies that needed to be destroyed. I think it's fate, Jenny said. Yeah, yay, think? Yeah, think? I said. I scooped him up and held him in one hand in front of my face, studying his mug. He looked at me with heart-melting brown eyes and then nibbled my nose. I plopped him into Jenny's arms, where he did the same to her. He certainly seems to like us, I said. Clearance dog was ours. We wrote Lori a check, and she told us we could return to take the dog home with us in 3 weeks. When he was 8 weeks old, we thanked her, gave Lily one last pat, and said goodbye. Thanked her, gave Lily one last pat, and said goodbye. Walking to the car, I threw my arms around Jenny's shoulder and pulled her tight to me. Can you believe it? I said. We actually got our dog. Just as we were reaching the car, we heard a commotion coming from the woods. Something was crashing through the brush and breathing very heavily. It sounded like a creature from a horror film, and it was coming our way. We froze, staring in the darkness. The sound grew louder and closer. Then, in a flash, the thing burst into the clearing and came charging at the direction in a yellow blur, a very big yellow blur, as it galloped past without stopping or noticing us. We could see it, a large Labrador retriever. But it was nothing like Sweet Lily. This one was soaking wet, covered up to its belly in mud and burrs. Its tongue hung out wildly to one side. Four flew off its jaws as it barreled past. I detected an odd, slightly crazed yet somehow joyous gaze in its eyes. It was as though this animal had just seen a ghost and couldn't possibly be more thrilled about it. Then, with the roar of stampeding herd of buffalo, it was gone around the back of the house and out of sight. Jenny let out a little gasp. I think I said, a slight queasiness rising in my gut. We just met Dad. And guys, I'm gonna close my door before I read more. Okay. Chapter 2. Homeward Bound. When it was time to bring the dog home, Jenny was at Disney World with her sisters. family, so I picked him up by myself. Lori brought out my new dog from the back of the house. I gasped. The tiny fuzzy pup we had picked out 3 weeks earlier had more than double-sized, and he came barreling at me and ran headfirst into my ankles. He collapsed in a pile at my feet and rolled onto his back and his paws in the air. I hoped it was his way of telling me I was the boss. Lori must have sensed my shock. "He's a growing boy, isn't he?" she said cheerily. You should see him pack away the puppy chow." I leaned down and rubbed his belly. "Ready to go home, Marley?" I asked. That's what Jenny and I had decided to name him, after Bob Marley, our favorite reggae musician. It felt right. I used beach towels to make him a cozy nest for him on the passenger seat of the car. I set him down in it, but I was barely out of the driveway when he began squirming and wiggling his way out of the towels. He belly crawled in my direction across the seat, whimpering at the center console. Marley ran into a problem. There he was, hind legs hanging over the passenger side of the console and front legs hanging out of the driver's side. In the middle, his stomach was firmly beached the emergency brake. His little legs were going in all directions, crawling at the air. He wriggled and rocked and swayed, but he was grounded like a firefighter. Wait, what? Like a free rider on a sandbar. I reached over and ran my hand around his back and made him a squiggle even more. His hind paws desperately tried to dig into the carpeted hump between the two seats. Slowly, he began working his hindquarters into the air, but rising up until the law of gravity finally kicked in. He slid headfirst down the other side of the console, somersaulting onto the floor at my feet and flipping onto his back. From there, he easily scrambled up into my lap. Man, was he happy, desperately happy. He quaked with joy as he burrowed his head into my stomach and nibbled the buttons of my shirt. His tail slapped the steady beat of the steering wheel. I found I could change the tempo of his wagging by touching him. Then I had both hands on the wheel. His tail beat 3 thumps per second. Thump, thump, thump. If I pressed one finger against the top of his head, the rhythm jumped from slow waltz to a lively bossa nova. Thump, 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 thump. 2 fingers and it jumps to a mambo. Thump, 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 thump. Wait. Thump, 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 thump. Thump, 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 thump. And when I cupped my entire hand over his head and massaged my fingers into his skull, the beat exploded into a machine gun, rapid fire samba. Thump, 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 thump. Wow, you've got a rhythm, I told him. You really are a reggae dog. When we got home, I let him inside and unhooked his leash. He began sniffing and didn't stop until he had sniffed every square inch of the place. Then he sat back. Then he sat back. Then he sat back. And looked up at me with his head cocked as if he were saying, "Cool house. But where are my brothers and sisters?" The reality of his new life didn't really hit him until bedtime. I had set up his sleeping quarters, and one was dry and comfortable, and it had a rear door that led out into the fenced backyard with its concrete floor and walls and a virtually indestructible Marley. Marley, I said cheerfully, leading him out there. "This is your room." And I had scattered chew toys around, laid newspapers down in the middle of the floor, filled the bowl with water, and made a bed out of cardboard box, lined with an old bedspread. "And here is where you'll be sleeping," I said, and lowered him down in the box. He was used to be sleeping in a box, but had always shared it with his siblings. Now he paced the perimeter of the box and sadly looked up at me as a test, stepped back into the house and closed the door. I stood and listened at the first nothing, then a slight, barely audible whimper, and then full-fledged crying. It sounded like someone was in there torturing him. I opened the door, and as soon as he saw me, he stopped. I reached in and petted him for a couple of minutes. Then I left again. Standing on the other side of the door, I began to count 1, 2, 3. He made it 7 seconds before the yips and cries began again. He repeated the exercise several times. Each time it was the same. I was tired, and I decided it was time for him to cry himself to sleep. I left the garage light on for him, closed the door, walked to the opposite side of the house, and crawled into bed. The concrete walls didn't muffle his pitiful cries. I lay there, trying to ignore them. I figured he could give up any minute and go to sleep. The crying continued even after I wrapped my pillow around my head. I could still hear it. Poor Marley, out there alone for the first time in his life. His mother was missing in action, and so were all his brothers and sisters. There wasn't even a single dog smell. I hung on for another half hour before getting up and going to him. As soon as he spotted me, his face brightened and his tail began to beat the side of the box. It was as if he were saying, "Come on, hop in, there's plenty of room." Instead, I lifted a box with him in it and carried it into my bedroom. I placed it on the floor against the side of my bed. I laid down on the very edge of the mattress, my arm dangling into the box, where my hand resting on his side, where I could feel his rib cage rise and fall with his every breath. He both drifted off to sleep. Chapter 3. For the next 3 days, I threw myself into taking care of the new puppy. I lay on the floor with him and let him scamper all over me. I wrestled with him. I used an old hand towel to play tug of war with him. Boy, was he strong. He followed me everywhere and tried to gnaw on anything he could get his teeth around. It took Marley just one day to discover the best thing about his home: toilet paper. 5 seconds after he disappeared into the bathroom, he came racing back out as he sprinted across the house with the end of the toilet paper roll clenched in his teeth. A paper ribbon unrolled behind him. The place looked like it had been decorated for Halloween. Every half hour or so, I would lead him into the backyard to pee or poop. Ugh! When he had accidents in the house, I scowled him when he peed outside. I placed my cheek against his and praised him in my sweetest voice. And when he pooped outside, I carried on as though we just won the lottery. When Jenny returns from Disney World, she threw herself into him with the same utter abandon. It was amazing. As the days unfolded, I saw it in my young wife, a gentle motherly side I had not known existed. She held him, she petted him, she played with him, she fussed over him, she combed through every strand of his fur in search of fleas and ticks. She rose every couple of hours through the night after night to take him outside for bathroom breaks. Mostly Jenny fed him, following the instructions on the bag. We gave Marley 3 large bowls of puppy chow a day. He wolfed down every morsel in a matter of seconds. Marley's appetite was huge, and his poop was huger. More he eats, more he... Still, the giant mounds that came out looked awful. Lot like what he'd eaten earlier. Was he even digesting this stuff? Apparently he was. Marley was growing at a furious pace. Each day he was a little longer, a little wider, a little taller, a little heavier. He was 20 pounds when I brought him home within weeks. He was up to 50. His cute little puppy head had rapidly morphed into something resembling the shape had heft on a blacksmith anvil. Wow! Marley's paws were enormous. His sides already rippled with muscle. His chest was almost as broad as a bulldozer. His little puppy tail was becoming as thick as powerful as an otter. What a tail! It was every last object in our house that was a knee level or below was knocked in all directions by Marley's wildly wagging weapon. We cleared coffee tables, scattered magazines, knocked framed photographs off the shelves, and sent bottles of glasses flying gradually. Jenny and I moved every item to a higher ground safely above the sweep of his swinging mallet's whole body, starting with the front shoulders and working backward. He was like the canine version of a slinky. We swore there was no bones inside him. Just one big elastic muscle. Jenny began calling him Mr. Wiggles. Marley wiggled most when he had something in his mouth. His reaction to any situation was the same. He would grab the nearest shoe or pillow or a pencil and run with it. Really, any item would do. Some little voice in his head seemed to be whispering to him, "Go ahead, pick it up, drool all over it. Run!" Some of the objects he grabbed were small enough to conceal, and this made him especially pleased. He seemed to think he was getting away with something, but when Marley had something to hide, he couldn't keep it to himself. He would explode into hyperdrive. His body would quiver, his head would bob from side to side, and his entire rear end would swing in a sort of spastic dance. We called it the Marley Mambo. "All right, what have you got this time?" I said. Marley would waggle his way. Marley would waggle his way around the room. His hips swayed and his head flailed flailed up and down like a whining horse. He would be so overjoyed with his forbidden prize, he could not contain himself. When I could finally get him concerned and pry open his jaws, I never came up empty-handed. There was always some thing he had plucked out of the trash or off the floor. As he got taller, he'd take it right off the dining room table. Paper towels, wadded Kleenex, grocery receipts, wine corks, paper clips, chess pieces, bottle caps. It was like a junkyard in there. Most evenings after dinner, Jenny and I strolled together with Marley along the waterfront. Stroll is probably the strolls is the wrong word. Marley strolled like a runaway locomotive. Strolls. He surged ahead, pulling his leash with all his might, choking himself hoarse in the process. We yanked him back. He yanked us forward. He tugged. He pulled. And he veered left and right, darting to every mailbox and shrub, sniffing, panting, and peeing with our fully stopping. He usually got more pee on us, wrapping the leash around our ankles. Then he approached with another dog. Marley would bull at the joyously rearing up his hind legs when he reached the end of the leash. He just wanted to make friends. He sure seems to love life. One dog owner commented that just about said it all. Chapter 4, Master and Beast. So guys, we're gonna stop right here at chapter 4. And guys, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment all down below. Do it until it turns gray. And for the comments, yeah, just do it until you see your comment down there. That's it, guys. Bye. See you next time. And guys, this is like, if you're at my school and you want to test this next quarter, like next time, the next article, how high it is, it's about 6 points or more or less. Yeah. Bye.